This video will likely be uploaded the day before our next ban list, so assuming you are seeing this after getting the news, I'm happy for you. Or, I'm sorry that happened. Very sorry. Fiendsmiths. Nice little jump scare to get you going. Their impact has been felt since the moment they set foot in our meta. And if you happen to be one of the few hungry enough for victory to drop some serious red orbs on them, you've likely enjoyed an uptick in wins at your local game store. But if you're more like me, and are not willing or able to drop a few hundred proud souls on a handful of cards just to avoid absolute disaster, there is still something to appreciate about this archetype. The foundation from which these cards are built is fairly unique. While we've had decks based on music and video games in the past, this one blends musical history with digital media in an especially creative way. The art style and storyline of the Fiendsmiths are loosely based on the Devil May Cry series, which itself is based on Dante's Inferno, a somewhat notable analysis of the state of the soul after death through the lens of paganism and Christianity in the Middle Ages. Perhaps you're familiar with it. Our main character, Fiendsmith Engraver, has a very similar appearance to Dante in the DMC series, and can be seen carrying Fiendsmiths Requiem on his back, similar to how Dante wields demon-ridden weapons in the game. His name, Engraver, is a callback to his original OCG name, Demon Carving Demonsmith, with a somewhat obscure play on words. An engraver is a person or tool that carves designs into the surface of hard materials. This is exemplified through a few pieces of card art, wherein we can see the Fiendsmith symbol carved into metal. The structure of the word can also imply that he is one that puts things into graves. Think along the lines of embalmer or gravedigger, and this is fitting considering the rest of the art in his archetype. Engraver's weapon, Fiendsmiths Requiem, is explained to us through a few different cards. As mentioned, it can be seen strapped to the back of Engraver, but it also appears in the art of Fiendsmiths Tract, giving us an idea of how it operates. Engraver gathers souls until enough have been collected to fuel a series of physical transformations in Requiem, making it more twisted and monstrous every step of the way. The name Requiem is taken from the Latin term for the funeral mass of the Catholic Church. In this ceremony, repose is offered to the souls of the dead. Its physical appearance as a coffin connects it directly to a funeral setting, as well as highlights the themes of death and resurrection present throughout both the archetype and the source material. Fiendsmiths Tract depicts Engraver kicking a demon into the mouth of Requiem. The word Tractus, shortened to tract in the TCG, is Latin for progress or passage. Additionally, Tractus is a versicle sung in the Roman Catholic Church after the graduale between the Epistle and the Gospel. It's named as such because it's played when the Bible is carried from one side of the church to the other during Mass. And fittingly, the kanji present in the OCG spelling of the name mean hymn and holy. The only other main deck monster in the archetype at the moment is Lacrima the Scarlet Sorrow, coming to us in Rage of the Abyss. Lacrima is the Yugioh counterpart to Trish from the DMC series. Trish is a demon created by Mundus, who eventually joins Dante in hunting demons throughout the series. She has the same blonde hair and similar attire to what is seen of Lacrima. Her serendipitous introduction into the game after Engraver can be seen as an extension of the story being told in the art of Fiendsmiths Lacrima. This fusion monster is Engraver armed with a turret gun-shaped Requiem, as a ghostly image of Lacrima the Scarlet Sorrow ascends in the upper right corner of the art, following the superpowered Engraver into battle. This is reminiscent of Dante's battle with Mundus in the first game. Dante is lured to the King of Hell's lair so that he can be killed. Mundus strikes Dante with 3 beams of red energy, taunting him for his weakness. When Mundus is about to deal the fatal blow, Trish pushes Dante out of the way, seemingly sacrificing herself while Mundus reveals his true form. Dante then fights a long, interdimensional battle against Mundus, leading to a final showdown between the two.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
It seems that Dante is not going to be strong enough to finish off the Demon Emperor when Trish returns to the battle, channeling her power into Dante. The Devil Hunter can then use his supercharged handguns to finally defeat Mundus. The name of this card is a shortened version of Lacrimosa, a Latin word meaning weeping, and derives from the phrase Our Lady of Sorrows, a title referring to the Virgin Mary. The Lacrimosa is also a portion of the Dies Irae. In this section of the sequence, prayer is offered up to God so that he might spare the soul of the dead and give them everlasting peace. This creates an interesting parallel between the sorrowful songs and the Fiendsmith fusion monsters. Lacrima is a level 6 and requires 2 light fiends to summon. Dies Irae is a level 9 and requires 2 light fiends as well as Engraver to summon, making it a complete form of Lacrima. This same incarnation of Engraver appears on the trap card Fiendsmith in Paradise. This references In Paradisum, an antiphon or short chant from the traditional Latin liturgy of the Roman Catholic Church's Requiem Mass. The translation here is pretty straightforward: into paradise. The English translation of the chant will be on the screen now. This is a final well-wishing to the dead, and is often sung in procession on the way from the final blessing of the deceased in the church to the grave where the mortal shell will spend eternity. Now, if you hadn't guessed already, Fiendsmiths Dies Irae, the wild chainsaw battle-axe-toting evolution of Engraver, is based on Dies Irae, a sequential Latin poem that describes Judgment Day, which is often used during the Requiem Mass. I also find it interesting the way in which Engraver takes on a crazed and demonic appearance in the fusion monsters, yet remains in original form with Agnus Dei. This could be a representation of him tapping into his demonic powers, but I think this may actually be a hint at the state of Dante's brother, Virgil. The twins were separated after the death of their mother, and chose decidedly different paths in life, with Dante leaning more into his human nature, and Virgil opting to harness the powers of the demon blood that courses through his veins, thus resulting in the wild appearance that we see here. Fiendsmith's sequence is the first upgrade for Requiem. Here we see the 2 tokens that we will later encounter with Fiendsmith's Sanct, flying around near the demon erupting from Requiem. This demon looks eerily similar to both Despair from the Dark and Fear from the Dark. Within Yugioh, these 3 cards have no real synergy apart from their physical appearance. However, it's worth noting that both of these monsters are depicted as vengeful spirits emerging from a grave. This theme is repeated multiple times throughout the story of Devil May Cry. Resurrections are performed on multiple occasions, leaving the returned soul in a more powerful state while losing a piece of what made them human. The line of Link monsters here is particularly reminiscent of Sanctus. After death, Sanctus is revived, still retaining his human form, but now carrying a demonic power within him. Over the course of the game, he makes his own physical transformations, first taking the form of an Alto Angelo by puppeteering the armor of one of his fallen holy knights, before revealing his true form to be within the Savior Colossus, and then into the demonic Sanctus Diabolica. Likewise, Requiem seems to manipulate the power of a vengeful spirit in sequence, and then reaches his final, most monstrous form with Agnus Dei. This card's name is based on the Latin word sequentia, meaning sequence, which is a liturgical chant or hymn that often accompanies the music for the burial service. It's sung during the Christian Eucharist, primarily before the Gospel reading. Fiendsmith's Agnus Dei is currently the final evolution of Requiem. It has now taken the form of a great red behemoth as Engraver barks commands from below. This position of being under control of a higher authority is reminiscent of the relationship between Agnus and Sanctus in DMC. Agnus is an antagonist in DMC 4, second in command to His Holiness. He serves as the chief technology researcher and alchemist of the Holy Knights. He too has been overtaken by a demonic power after being resurrected in the Ascension ceremony. His demonic form takes the appearance of a large bee fly creature similar to Exciton Knight in my opinion, and he wields the Yamato, a dark forged katana used to open or destroy the true Hellgate. He also summons bat-like minions to assist him in battle, with an appearance similar to those depicted in Fiendsmith's Sanct. Agnus Dei gains its name from Agnus Dei, a Latin phrase translating to Lamb of God. This is a liturgical prayer used in honor of Jesus Christ. The phrase is also used as a musical accompaniment of the prayer as part of a mass setting.
Sanctus, Sanctus.
Fiendsmith's Sanct depicts the aforementioned bat-like creatures previously seen flying around sequence. These are the tokens summoned by this card's effect. The top token can be seen carrying a tablet with what appears to be the same insignia engraved on Requiem, connecting them back to Engraver. Sanct is just a shortened form of Sanctus, an ancient hymn from Catholic liturgy dating back almost 2,000 years. It's sung at the end of the preface of the Eucharistic prayer of remembrance, consecration, and praise. Sanctus is also the name of the main antagonist in DMC4. He's originally killed by Dante during a sermon, but is later resurrected through the Ascension ceremony. He retains his human form, but is now imbued with incredible demonic power. His role as puppet master, manipulating his followers in the Order of the Sword to work towards his ultimate goal, lines up perfectly with his name being associated with the token generator for the archetype. They're nothing but expendable fodder for the end board the player seeks to build. This also plays on a common video game trope of a boss being able to summon underlings to assist him in the fight. In the battle between Dante and Angelo Agnus, the latter summons similar-looking bat monsters to attack Dante. In the battle between Nero and Sanctus, 2 glowing drones are repeatedly raised to impede Nero as he fights to kill his holiness. There is a rich world of possibility with future storytelling that can be done with this archetype. Perhaps a second line of Link monsters based off of the Yamato, or a kaiju-type monster that takes the form of Mundus. But before any of that can happen, Konami will need to temper the power level of the core engine before the community is overrun with contempt. Until that day comes, be sure to dress your best, as we will continue to attend the funeral of a diverse meta.